There's a popular misperception in our culture that religion hinders one's freedom, that religion cramps one's lifestyle, that it's an oppressive force. Some people are even ashamed to talk about their religion to their friends and believe their reputation would suffer a big blow if it were known that they had faith, so they hide it. You know, in that Billy Joel song, he says, I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. That's a mentality out there. Well, let me tell you something. Everyone in heaven, they're having a good day. There's no crying. The people in hell, they're having a horrible day. Crying might be the best emotion they're feeling. So it's a lie. It's a big lie that religion is some way causing us to have our worst version of our life. It's quite the opposite. Living with a strong faith in God brings us true happiness that you can't find anywhere else. In that second reading, we heard St. Paul say, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I shall say it again, rejoice." And that's kind of the theme of this Sunday. It's to rejoice. You may notice the world isn't a perfect place. You know, in fact, there's a lot of big problems happening around the world right now. But joy is a gift from God that is infused into the soul that loves the Lord. That's quite simply the best definition you can give it. You can't buy it, you can't manufacture it, you can't produce it on your own. It's given by God to those who follow him, love him, and adore him. And St. Thomas Aquinas tells us that the human being needs joy. It's part of the DNA of the person to experience joy, and that it fulfills and completes the person in a certain way, the joy of the Lord. And it is God's. You know, Jesus said, I've come that that my own joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. It's his joy. But when most of the world isn't really following God anymore, working against God, even proclaimed Catholics are doing everything possible to bring down God and his church, there's no joy. There's no joy there. And so what do? Because there is a craving for it, they manufacture the knockoff, which is called pleasure. And pleasure is fleeting. It comes in from the outside world through the senses, and then it dissipates. It is hardly joy. Joy has no correlation to the events surrounding you. So you could be, Jesus hanging on the cross was experiencing joy in his heart because he knew he was pleasing his Father, and he was being perfectly obedient, and that brought him an internal joy. Our Lady, standing at the foot of the cross, suffering the worst pain she'd ever endured, had an interior joy because she was in complete union with the Trinity, and she knew this was the Father's will, because it was going to save all of his children, us. So it has nothing to do with what's going on around you, thank God. So the joy and happiness we celebrate today, it's kind of symbolized in the rose vestments and the pink candles, the pink flowers. The church wants us to take this Sunday to celebrate and anticipate Jesus' birth and to rejoice and have that joy, despite we're in a penitential season of Advent. Jesus wanted his disciples to share in his joy. He wants us to share in his joy. And sometimes it's good to go back to basics and think about what he's done for us, because often we jump into our day, hit the ground running with the cup of coffee on the way to the car, and we just keep go till it's time to go to sleep. You were made by a perfect God who is the all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present, and he made you out of love for you. You were created by love. He's sustaining you by his love, and that love is awaiting your return at the end of this life. So that alone should be enough to have joy. But more than that, you're a Catholic. You were graced by the sacraments. You were baptized and brought into his divine life, his divine family. What Jesus is by his very nature, you've become by grace. That alone should be enough to rejoice over, because only 1 out of 8 people on the planet have that. Think about that. It's a big deal. But that wasn't enough. The day he made you, he also assigned an angel to you to guard you and watch over you for the rest of your life until the end of life. And if you go to purgatory, that angel goes to purgatory with you to encourage you. But that wasn't enough. He restored us to his Father, the Almighty God. He gave us access to the Father and to heaven. But that wasn't enough. At the cross, he gives us his very mother, Our Lady, the Immaculate One. And she takes that job very seriously. And she's perfect. So she executes her duties with perfection. And the grace God gives her to help us is profound. But that wasn't enough. No. He also left us his body and blood in the sacrament of the Eucharist, that we could come to church and we could literally receive Jesus' body and blood and be drawn into that divine life and be fed daily, if we wanted to, as food for the journey through this life to the narrow gate that is Jesus to heaven. I mean, that's a lot. If you look at it in those terms, we have been gifted so much. He has stacked the deck in our favor. We only need to participate in it. You know, you have to turn it on. You could have the greatest alarm system in the world, spend $1 million on a high-tech alarm system on your house, but if you don't flip the on switch, it's worth nothing. And it's the same with this faith. If you don't engage it, if you don't step into it, if you don't live it, it's not doing anything. You have to participate. You know, he made us without our permission, but we're not getting into heaven without our participation. We have to be doing our share. And it's interesting to me today that when John the Baptist is preaching to this large group of people, he's asked one question 3 times. What should we do? Tell us what to do. The first is from just the general Joe P. public. And he says, if you have 2 cloaks, give 1 to somebody in need. Then the tax collectors ask, what should we do? Stop cheating people. Don't overtax them and pad your own pockets. And then the third group asks him, the soldiers, what should we do? Do not extort people and do not falsely accuse. You know, the greatest things you could do in the Jewish faith were pray, fast, and give alms. John didn't mention any of those things. John is telling us that we need to stop focusing on ourselves and start paying attention to God's other children. That's what he's calling us to. And it's after he gives them this direction, it says he preached the good news to the people. This was the good news. See, they don't look at this as some kind of a burden. They're looking at it as a freedom, because the Messiah is coming and they're getting ready. They want to be ready. And we should be in the same disposition. He's coming back at some point. He's going to be here today, by the way, right here on this altar. And he's offering himself for you to come up and receive him and enter deeper into his life. What a great gift. No other religion has this. That's why Jesus wanted everybody to become Catholic. Go out and make disciples of all nations, including Israel. He wants everyone to enter into this great gift of this Catholic family. So we should take it very seriously. And imagine that the day you were baptized, God was rejoicing over you. God rejoicing over you. That you could take that to a dozen holy hours and have food for prayer for days. God rejoices over me? Yes, he rejoices over you. He loves you that much. He looks at you the same way he looks at his son, Jesus. And when he baptized us, he put his seal on us. Your soul was forever changed and can never be taken away, that mark that God put on you. And what a great gift that is. So properly understood, our faith in God is a liberating force, liberating us from unhappiness into great joy. And when you have that, you have everything. I'll give you 2 examples of people, saints in this life who really experienced it in the midst of the worst trial. The first is Max Kolbe. Saint Maximilian Kolbe was a priest who was picked up in World War II and thrown into the prison Auschwitz. And there was a gentleman that they were going to execute who had a family. And this priest stepped up and said, no, please, let me take his place. He has a wife and kids. And for whatever reason, the Nazis let him take the place. And it was a terrible way to die. They put about a dozen people into a 3x3 foot box and squeezed them together, standing like toothpicks, and they would just gradually die off one by one, and you'd have to just stay there with these dying people. But something different happened that day, because Father Kolbe led them in praising the Lord. And they went up singing hymns and psalms and praises throughout the night. Never been done before. He was the first to start doing that. And they all sang and were having great joy. Why? Because they know where they're going. They know that God is with them despite the circumstances. You see, it had nothing to do with what's going on there. It's everything to do with who is going to lead me to heaven. Similarly, during the French Revolution, there was a group of Carmelite nuns that were picked up and thrown into prison. They were stripped of their habits and given burlap sacks to wear. And these women decided they would make mud from the dirt on the ground under their feet with some water, and they put crosses on the front of their burlap to make the burlap their new habits. And they found great joy in that. Can you imagine? We're in prison, we're going to die, but it's important that we be recognized as having our habits. So let's go make some habits out of this burlap. The day of the execution, they were all going to be guillotined publicly in Paris, which they were. There was one novice that was able to escape before they were taken, but she knew it was coming. And over this course of weeks while they were waiting to be executed, she realized she was called to this life. And so she ran back to be with her sisters. And that day, as they were being guillotined one by one, they were singing the Salve Regina. And it was a profound experience of the witnesses to this, because it started off rather boldly, like the choir, with a lot of voices, and it went all the way down to the prioress being the last one until the little novice showed up. And it was just the two of them singing, and then finally the novice gave her life as well, with great joy, because they knew where they were going. It's all about where we're going. It's not about focusing on this life. We have to just do our best, love God with all our hearts, love our neighbor as ourselves, and trust in his great mercy.